everyone and welcome back to Combe Campers. Today we are going to be fitting the Autoterm diesel heater into our camper bullet.
I just want to take a moment to say thank you to our sponsors, Howden's Modified Van Insurance. That's right, A-Plan are now Howden's. They still do exactly the same in that they will insure your van from the time you buy it until you completely convert it into a camper van and beyond. And if you want an exclusive rate on your next policy, please mention Combe Valley Campers and they will sort you out. In front of us, we have everything you need to fit the Autoterm Air 2D heater into the VW Transporter platform. Now that is the T5, 5.1, 6 and 6.1. We have the 6.1 behind us. There are some differences between the vans over the years, but for the most part, all of the components you see in front of you are exactly what you need to fit the heater underneath the van. That's right, we're gonna go underslung using this bracket here, and we're going to take you through every step of the way. We have already completed a full Autoterm video on Bully.
We have, yes.
Yeah, that was a very comprehensive video. We went through a lot of the kit here. So if you want more details on the Autoterm 2D itself and how we fitted it on a classic van, then please refer back to this video. We're not going to go really in depth with the inner workings, but what we're going to be showing you today is how to retrofit a diesel heater into a camper van such as the one behind us that already has interior in it that you have to basically modify bits and pieces to fit in with your existing van, because a lot of camper van conversions out there come supplied without a diesel heater. You may have purchased a van and you want a diesel heater fitting retrospectively, so this is what we're going to do today, and we're going to cover all of the elements. So as you can see in front of us, we have the diesel heater itself. It's the biggest component, but there's so much to go with it. And we've got the heater hoses from, if we start from the right, or my left, your right, what have we got over there on the left, on?
I don't know.
So that is the combustion air intake hose.
Okay.
Right, that gets mounted on the bottom plate of this heater.
Yep.
All right, so you've got a combustion air in and an exhaust out, or combustion air out. So we have the air inlet hose.
Yep.
The exhaust.
Yep.
With the fiberglass heat shield on as well. And as you can see on the video, all of these parts have got the associated fitting kits with them. Mm-hmm. Air intake hose, fitting kit, exhaust, you've got the fiberglass cover, the silencer and the fitting kit. Moving over, we have up here, this is the heater tube and air inlet tube. So you've got two air inlets on a heater, obviously the combustion air, and then you need air coming into the heater that will be warmed up and then spat out the other side. This hose actually covers both. You trim it to fit, and it slots on one side and the other. We can go into that later. The kits, when you purchase them from the website, combevalleycampers.co.uk, you have the option to click the box for a carbon monoxide detector, and we will be slotting one of those in today. You have your warranty certificate and instruction manual. Right here in front of us, we have the comfort controller, which is the one I'd recommend because it gives you a nice readout. You can have increased settings like thermostat and timer. Behind that, we have the modem Q start, and that is so you can control your heater from your phone. It uses a SIM card, and we can go through that later as well. And then moving further over, we have the rest of the fitting kit. We have the wiring harness for the fuel pump. The fuel pump is just over here with the pipe and the mounting kit. We have the small control panel loom, and then we have the large. We've ordered this one specially. This is the 7-meter harness, which means you can have your heater under the van and then effectively run that cable wherever you want in the van to control the heater.
Yep.
And we'll put the heater controller in what we feel is the optimum position. The flexible fuel rated fuel hose. The main power loom, which is huge, but you can trim it down.
Okay.
Or add that into your existing fuse panel. We will actually need most of that because our fuse panel is right at the back of the van.
Okay.
So that's going to be quite handy that it is so long. And The last bit here is the nice hose outlet trims. So when you're mounting them into your chosen position, rather than just having an empty hose blowing hot air out, you've actually got a nice trim, and they have directional vents on them as well. And that's about it. And the bracket. So this bracket here, we'll go into that when we come to fit it, but this is designed and shaped to fit into the chassis rail under the driver's seat, and it effectively just bolts in. We're going to be using some riv nuts to put into the chassis, and then we use an M8 bolt to hold this bracket, and it slots in just nicely, made out of nice stainless steel, laser cut stainless steel, and then you mount the heater to the bracket. So should we get on with it?
Yes.
Let's do it. This is going to be a lot of B-roll with some me talking in the background, because like I said, we've done these in the past, but what we will be covering more so is how to retrospectively fit it into an existing camper van interior.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah, ready.
Let's pick the van up.
Yeah.
First thing you're going to have to do is remove most of the belly pans from the rear wheels forwards to access not only the fuel tank, and down the right hand side, because that's where you're going to be actually placing your heater. You've got to run wiring, we've got to drop the fuel tank to add the fuel feed for the diesel heater. So what we're doing right now, and you can hear Ross teaching Dommy in the background, is she's realizing just how messy it can be when you're working under a vehicle and how dusty and grimy. But she's actually getting stuck in, which is brilliant. If you are doing this at home, it is possible to do it on either axle stands, or if you've got a slightly raised vehicle, you can get away with doing it on the ground. Ideally, if you can, get it done on a hoist or a lift, because there is a lot of work you need to do feeding cables, like I say, and also you've got to drop the tank. We'll show you how we drop the tank later, but for now, I think we're just going to continue using the different tools to remove those belly pans. What we've got is a series of trim removal tools. They remove the clasps underneath, and we can show you those. There is an 8mm socket that you require, a 10mm socket, and in some cases some T-drive screws and some Phillips screws as well. So we're just going to keep smashing on until all the belly pans are dropped, and then we'll bring you back when we drop the fuel tank. Next stage, now the belly pans are down, is to remove the fuel tank. Now, when you fill up your van, you open the flap, the fuel comes down in this, and then fills up this tank. When you fill up the AdBlue, it comes through this hose and fills up this tank. In order to remove the fuel tank, we need to release some hoses. So this is the fuel in and fuel out. We need to disconnect those. And then we also need to disconnect the two, the filler and the breather hose, or overflow hose, from the AdBlue tank, because it's so much easier to remove the tank once they're out the way. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 hose connections to disconnect, and then this clip here, which is the electrics for the top of the tank, and so that will be fuel pump feed and the fuel sender wiring as well. And literally you disconnect all of these from here. Make sure you've got a belly pan or at least a drip tray underneath, so you can catch any spilt fuel and spilt AdBlue. We might spill that because it's quite full, isn't it, Ross, the AdBlue? I can't remember. And then once that's done, there are 6 13mm bolts that hold the tank up, but also in the fuel flap there are a series of Torx head screws. That means you disconnect, or you remove the fascia plates and the fastenings that are holding in the hose. So we'll go through that. We'll drop, once the straps are loose, we'll drop the vehicle down slightly onto one of our little tables, remove the tank, and then lift the van back up, and we can wheel the fuel tank out. All right, let's get it done. Before the tank comes down, you have to remove all of these trim plates, and that is using what we've got here, a T25 bit. No, there's one smaller than that, Ross. 20. A 20. So a series of Torx headed screws. And once the lids are off, 1 and 2, this should just come off now, I think. Hold that for me, thank you. There you go. There is a breather hose on that one as well. Whoa. Let me open the door. In fact, to the observant, you saw a little breather hose coming out the bottom of the van. That is that one. And so anything that you might spill out of your fuel cap or the AdBlue cap, it feeds down. That's a drain hose, not a breather hose. But then underneath here, you can see there are two M6 or 10mm heads. No, they're M8s. And then there's a further Torx in there as well. So that is actually a T30 in there, I think, Ross. Yeah. Well, the T25 has managed it, but that is a T30 in there. Don't do that. One and two. These are now both loose. So when you come to drop the tank, that's all down there. That little thing that just dropped there was a metal collar. Find that and put it back in, and that is basically an earth point from the top of this metal ring here to the body. So you do need to find that really. And that's it. We can bring the, well, next we're gonna undo the straps for the fuel tank, which are the series of 13mm bolts. Once they're undone, we can slowly bring the van up whilst we've got somebody here guiding the hoses out and also observing underneath. All of the fastenings are out of the straps, which means the fuel tank is now sat on the table. Ross is going to proceed to lift the vehicle up whilst I am guiding the filler neck out of its home, basically. You want to go ahead?
Yep.
I say it's as simple as that. We've done this hundreds of times. We're quite attuned to it now. When you're on your back on the floor, it is a little bit more difficult. If you are trying to do this on the floor, it is possible to just drop the tank on the floor, do what you need to do at the fuel sender side, and then put the tank back in. However, to make your life a lot easier, if you can get it on a ramp, you can get access to a ramp, you can move the tank out like this in this sort of situation, try and get it done. It just makes your life so much easier.
If you're going to do it on the floor,
yes.
have a quarter of tank.
Oh yes, there's a very good hint and tip as well from Ross there. Don't have a full tank of fuel when you're doing this. Again, we can do it whatever the situation because we've got the ramp and this table on wheels. But trying to put a tank up on your back when it's full of fuel, even if it's got a quarter of a tank of fuel, it's really difficult. Doable, but really difficult. So yeah, try and get it down to at least on the red, if not more, to drop the tank. Let's go to the next stage. Now the tank is out and the sender is out of the tank, I've cleaned up the top area so you can see and I can see better. Depending on the age of your vehicle, the model of vehicle, etc., etc., your sender or top of your sender may look different to this. Some of the newer vans have basically a nipple that comes out of here with a pipe already attached, and for that you need to get the fittings to go on top of that as well for VW. But in most cases you have a little area just here that's marked out by basically a relief in the plastic or an impression in the plastic, and you need to drill down that point there. Once you've drilled down, you can put your standpipe in, and then you need to trim this down to be the right length. Obviously this is far too long, but it's a universal type kit. And what we'll do, we'll get the drill hold, we'll get the standpipe in and measured, and then we can bring you back and tell you exactly the measurements we've taken, etc, etc. Like I say, we do this a lot. Don't normally do it in terms of measurement, but because I'm doing it for you, we will tell you exactly how long you need to trim it. But it's a hole in there that's big enough to feed this threaded section through, and you've got enough big washers, etc, to clamp it all together. You get your nice tight seal around it, and then you want the tip of your standpipe feeding out in the same direction as your fuel lines, because what we're trying to achieve is for the fuel pipe to come out at this angle, and then your new diesel heater fuel line actually clips into the existing reliefs onto the tank. Makes it a really nice, neat install. The standpipe is now fitted, as you can see. To let you know, like we said we would, we cut that down to 190 millimeter, 19 centimeters. We did put a chamfered angle on it in the same way that the existing pipe comes with. And then once we'd cut it in that, let's call it a 45-degree angle, we just made sure to make the inlet nice and clean. There's no swarf or anything in there. The pipe is in the direction we want it, and as you can see, there's a kink in the pipe, and then it's fed in to an existing relief onto the side of the fuel sender. When you put the sender back in the tank, it does compress slightly, so we can't have this touching all the way down to the bottom. But you also don't want it touching the bottom, so when your diesel heater's on, it's not sucking all the fuel out the tank, so when you come to start it in the morning after camping, you've got no fuel left in your vehicle. So make sure it's not touching the bottom completely. This compresses down, let's call it an inch, 2.5 centimeters when it's in the tank. So the fuel line or the standpipe is not touching the bottom of the tank, it's at a chamfered angle, and it's trimmed and bent to suit. Let's pop it in, put everything back together, and then we can feed the fuel line along the tank. Next stage then, fitting the fuel line to the standpipe. We have taken out of our mounting kit or fuel system a small piece of flexible hose, 2 of the fuel clamps, the long reel of white cable, and we are going to attach these appropriately, making sure they're all the way home. We'd like these two to be, say, the white line and the standpipe to be touching underneath this part. I understand if it's not possible, depending on your accessibility. Fuel clamps on, we're going to run this line back, chuck the fuel tank back up, connect all the pipes, connect all the wiring, get it all set, and then we shall move on to the fuel pump. We're now onto the stage where we're mounting our diesel pump. We have chosen to mount our diesel pump on one of the pre-drilled or holes within the chassis rails. We've mounted them on brackets around here in the past. We've mounted them on this chassis member. We know other people put their diesel pumps all over, but this is a very nice accessible area, and there's a pre-drilled hole that I can put a riv nut and the supplied bolt. A few things you have to consider when you're doing the pump. One is that the direction arrow is in the right direction. In the case of the Autoterm pumps, the direction of flow is towards the plug socket. And we're holding it in that sort of direction here because this is the angle of the pump where it needs to be sighted when it's on the metalwork. So it needs to be at an upwards angle of flow, around 30 degrees. Thank you, Aidan from UAO, for that little snippet. It needs to go upwards in the angle, and we are going to choose to mount it in this hole just here above the AdBlue tank. And we've mounted it in its rubber bracket in such a way that it will miss all the components, be at the right angle, and be very easily accessible. That means our fuel line can just flex round at a nice radius to go into the end of the pump. The flow going towards the pump can flow right over the top of the chassis. There's already existing brackets we can use up here to mount our hose to and our wiring when it comes to that section, and it's going to end up right in the direction of where our diesel pump needs to be. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to cut the fuel line to length with some pipe cutters. We're going to mount this bracket using riv nuts. We're going to attach the hose each end, and then we're going to run the rest of the fuel line through to the area where our diesel pump is going. Good progress made. Fuel tank out, standpipe in, fuel line out, tank back up, all buttoned up. Fuel pump in, fuel line connected from the tank to the inside, fuel line connected to the outside of the pump, wiring in and mounted to the chassis. Now we have the excess hose right here, and we have excess wiring this side. Now, depending on the route we decide to take for the cabling, I'm either going to chop off the excess here and re-terminate both ends around about here, or I'm going to connect this side up to the diesel heater, which will sit just over there, pull all the cable through and then terminate it around near the diesel heater. That's what we're going to do for now. I think what we're going to do is build the diesel heater up, including the bracket, mount the bracket onto the chassis, and then we'll come back to you when we start making connections. The bracket we are fitting today is this one here. It is designed to go under the offside, or driver's side in the UK, side of the vehicle, under the cab step. Like literally right there is where you open the door, and that is the plastic step. The bracket has this large tang here and two brackets, or two areas with holes that match up perfectly into the chassis. Now, you'll be able to see that this tang here goes up into this slot. And I'm gonna just slot that up in there, bang it in, and you can see that it lines up, or these two folded sections line up with these two hexagonal holes, which it turns out are a perfect size for an M6 riv nut. So I'm going to set up my riv nut tool, feed on my riv nut, pop it in the hole right there, and then proceed to tighten it up. Now, for those who like this riv nut tool, I can't remember the brand, but it does have code Sierra Sarah Mike 3120 Golf. So pop that into your Woogle. We chose this riv nut tool because we work a lot under vehicles, and when you want to get a riv nut in a tight space such as this, or anywhere in the chassis, having the ones with long handles doesn't really work under van. So that's a fantastic little option right there. So, M6 riv nut, we've gone in hole number 1, hole number 2 is over here. And then all you need is two, what are we going to say, Ross, 20, 25 mil M6 bolts?
Yeah,
They don't come in the kit, sadly. So you are going to have to find 25mm M6 bolts with some washers. They're two different sizes. Is that on purpose or just what was in the tub? Okay. So that will go in there. It looks like you can move it or the holes are elongated, but right there is where it's going to sit. You then mount the heater onto this side, but we'll go over that in just a second. M6 bolt, washer. Pop it up in there. And then the next time you see me, I'll have the diesel heater with the fitting kit and we shall mount it onto the bracket. The Autoterm 2D will only fit on this bracket one way. It's been built in that way as well. But if you're fitting maybe another type of diesel heater, you don't know which way it goes. If you take the end caps off, the side with the fan, plastic fan on, that's your air incoming. The side with those cast metal fins on the inside, that is where the air is going to escape from. When you're doing this, make sure your cables are not getting caught up anywhere. And it's simply a case of slotting the heater onto its bracket and putting on the appropriate washers. We've got like a penny style washer, what washer would you call that? Like a locking type washer?
Yeah.
It's like a serrated washer. Pop all them on, and then we can start fitting on. So what we'll do next, now the heater's on, why don't you drill the holes where we need them, and I will build this up. After a lot of deliberation, we have decided on the best location to have the heat output from the heater. Now, normally you would have the heat output under the seat. You can see I don't really have anything of importance under the seat, like a battery or anything else. However, this van is going to be a rolling experiment. We might have a battery under the seat one day, we might have anything else under the seat. To that end, I wanted the heat to come out in the floor area. And we've done it before, but I wanted the heat to come out through the floor area so it misses the cupboard, misses the seat, misses any structural areas under the floor, etc, etc. We have come out with the best location here, and we have Ross underneath the van, and he has confirmed that that is a decent area under there and one that we are both happy with. Now the hole is marked, we're happy that it's clear underneath, we're happy it's clear on the top. I'm going to use a 61, is that right? 64mm hole saw. Now, the hose is pretty much exactly 64mm, which makes it a super tight fit. However, it's a super tight fit on purpose, meaning we don't really have to stuff any unsightly or gloopy mess to keep that hole sealed. I guess without further ado, let's get that hole drilled. Now you might be thinking, Lee, that is super close to the table. Lee, that is super far away from the seat base. And it's really inconvenient, a hose coming up there. However, we have a get around. And that get around is that we were going to use some of the excess material that matches this interior to basically cut out a nice cover, which means the table will still work in the same manner in that it will drop back in its position. We will cover up the hose for its protection, and then we'll have a nice outlet just here, so the heat is going to be able to exit the vent and the hose through into the main cabin area, and I can still store stuff on top of it as well. So calculated-ish, good. That's up to me to decide, I guess, because it's my van. But I would recommend, if you do choose not to bring a heater hose up through the seat bases, which is very common, that is probably your next best alternative. The heating air input is ideally located down in the cab step, or that's where we feel the best location for it is. To get the center of the hole that you need to cut and drill, I've got here the exterior trim of the outlet. So I've taken it off, I've held it down here in the ideal position, and it's key to get it down in this curve here. Not as close to this side as possible, not as close to the top as possible, and you see why later. We want it as low as possible and as far forward as possible. And once I got my location, I've marked this hole here. I'm going to pilot it out with a 4mm drill bit, and then going to follow it up with a 6mm arbor. And the reason you mount that or drill that hole as low as possible is because if you drill it too high, and you can see there, you'll actually go into the top of the cab floor. So right there's the ideal location. I'm going to now hoover up all the mess I've made. I'm going to seal the edges of this with some paint or primer, and then we can look at mounting that trim, which is, yeah, I'll clean up first and I'll bring you back. Now that the hole is treated, and we've just had to actually enlarge the plastic one to a 70, that will go on there super nice. And the trim will go on top as well. And that will be the intake for your heater right there. What we're going to do now is lift the van back up. I'm going to show you how we attach the inlet hose, but what it is effectively is fitting the inlet hose onto the side of the heater, feeding it through this hole, cutting off the excess, popping that in. Under the driver's seat, there is a wonderful little access hole with a black grommet in. You see, we've just sliced a crisscross in there. You can do it. We plan on, the reason I've done a crisscross is because we plan on running other cables in the future for different systems. The cables have then been fed under the cab mat, under the seat base. I've just whipped out the seat base, tucked them through, fed the cables through, because they will eventually lead up the B-pillar behind the plastic trim. But for now, all of the excess is here, which makes it easy for me to route them behind the interior and into the location where they are going. I'm now going to whip the driver's seat back in, so that is another job ticked off the list. We have successfully mounted the heater. We have mounted the fresh air in for the heating, the warm air out for the heating, and fed it from the step into the bodywork. We have mounted our fresh air intake pointed towards the rear of the vehicle. We are now going to mount the exhaust system. We have already mounted a riv nut into the bodywork, and we've loosely mounted the silencer. The silencer is going to live there. What we have to do now is mock up our exhaust in a position that we're happy with, that's going to miss everything and going to be routed out of this gap and spat out there. Okay, I know there's a lot of discussion and thoughts about feeding the exhaust out to underneath the van, but I would encourage and invite you to go over and watch Urban Arc Overland's video. You might have seen me wearing his hat earlier, and he goes into far greater depth than I will regarding the exhaust and spitting it out underneath the vehicle. You will find it very interesting. So finish this video, then go over and have a look at Urban Arc Overland's fitting video, and you will see why we do this. It's 5 p.m. We're just buttoning up for today. But I wanted to show you before we go home what we're going to do before we actually chuck all the belly pans on. Last thing you saw was us measuring up the exhaust. That is now installed. You can see this short section here has been covered with the fiberglass heat shield. That is a fantastic addition to the Autoterm kit. Silencer is securely mounted. There is a little 10mm spacer just to bring it down a little lower so we don't interfere with these cables. These cables have since been P-clipped onto the mounting bracket for the Autoterm heater. And what we've got is the exhaust spitting out in the factory cutout. And as it comes out, you can just see it smoking because I've just started it up to see if it's all good and working before we chuck on the belly pans. But going back to the exhaust, there's just a little S-bend here and it's spitting out under there. Now that smoke is just on startup. There's also a smell that you will notice as well when it first starts up. And that is down to it all being new. There might be residual diesel in there or the new diesel in there. Just needs a bit of time to fire up, warm up, like any diesel. In fact, here you go, you can just hear the diesel heater firing up now for the first time. Doesn't normally sound that loud when you fire it up when you're camping. But all we've done is just hook the lead up to a battery and the remote is set so it will fire up even at this warm temperature today. It's actually 25 degrees today. It's what, mid to late September. But as you can hear now, that's actually firing up for the first time and that's brilliant. And now it is firing. See, there's no smoke out of there. It's just that initial fire up. The first time it ever fires, you'll ever see some smoke. If you do ever see smoke come out of these, there's something wrong with it. So what we'll do now, before we actually chuck the belly pans on, we'll run that for half hour, check that there's no leaks, check that everything's working fine, check that nothing's getting too hot, and we'll wrap that up. Tomorrow, when we meet you again, we will be making some new interior bits and pieces to hide that heating hose that I showed you earlier, and then we're going to be mounting the remote in a good location, and that's about it. Then we'll wrap it up. Maybe you'll see Dom again because she's been very busy today, so she's not been here with all the video, but thank you to Ross and thank you for Mick for consulting us as well, because Mick does a lot of these heaters. I'm a bit rusty on them, so he's been helping us out on the way, which has been brilliant. So yeah, we'll see you in the morning. Now we have all the underneath complete and we've actually run the heater like you heard earlier. All we have to do now are basically 3 more jobs. The first one, or they're not going to be necessarily in order, but job number 1 is to make a housing for this hose. Fortunately, we have some material left over that matches our interior, so we're just going to make a very simple box with an end cap on it, and that will protect that hose and anything we put down the end of the interior in the future, like tables, chairs, or whatever it might be. So that's job number 1. That might need a bit of CAD, cardboard aided design, just to make sure we get the right shape. Or as Ross said earlier, measure twice, cut once. So we've got that to do. We're going to make a really nice, neat housing, which means we can still pull the fold-out table out and cover the hose, like I said. Job number 2 is to find a home for the comfort controller. Now, when it comes to fitting the comfort controller, don't put it near the hose or don't put it in the near vicinity, because this works off a thermostat. And if you set it at 26, for example, and you've got it sighted right next to your heater, you are going to trip the thermostat in that way before your van ever gets warm. Where we are going to put it is up the top of the interior, and I'll show you that in a minute. And then we've got to run the cable to it. Fortunately, with the Cool Whip interior that we have in the van, we've got some really handy cutouts down the back corner of all the units so you can run cables through nice and easy. The last job is to connect the main live feed. We have something like 32 feet of it, but that's not a big problem for us this time because we have a Clayton LPS 2-3 in the back of the interior. So we have to route this in a very similar manner to the cable for the controller, and we've got 2 options. We can either mount it directly to the positive and negative out terminal on the back of the Clayton, and it has its own fuses. We're not going to do that today because we've got to squeeze all of this through some very small gaps and some very small hoses. So what we're going to do is actually we'll make sure the cable's long enough first, which I'm sure it will be, but we're actually going to cut the cable, ditch the fuse box, and feed it through, and then we can wire this up into our fuse panel that you can see in the back under the bed. And that'll be it. We'll just put a 25 amp fuse in it. We'll mount the cables as close to the actual main feed in to the fuse panel, and that'll be done. Once that's all done, in fact, job number 4, Ross, would you mind passing me the carbon monoxide detector, please? Job number 4 for us is to fit the carbon monoxide detector. Thank you very much. And I am going to locate this near to the outlet of that hose, which is going to be up here on this top corner. So it's not completely obvious, but it's in a decent enough position that I can turn the alarm off, or I can hear it anywhere in the van. So it's going to be pretty much directly above that outlet for the heater. I'm not going to put it all the way back because I don't want the cabin filling with carbon monoxide if it ever does happen and take ages to get to the alarm point. So this will locate about up here somewhere. Let's have a look at where we're going to put the comfort controller. The comfort controller then is a digital display for your heater. It actually has a voltage reading, so you can quickly check the voltage of your battery, for example. It's got time and date, and it's got the thermostat or temperature readout of the inside of the van and the temperature you want it to reach. I thought about putting the controller with the rest of the controls around here, but I just couldn't decide what looked better. I'm not entirely happy with how we've laid this out because everything's a different size, but it's just going to have to be what it is. I was going to put it up here, but what I think I'm going to do for ease of use, ease of fitting, and it's not associated with all of this, is actually put the controller up in this top corner in the interior. That means it's at a decent height, so the thermostat won't kick in until the whole cabin's full of the nice warm air, and I can control it not only from this seat, but from when we're in bed as well, when the bed's in the down position. So very happy with that, and it's also a fairly decent cable route as well. I'll be able to route the remote cable all the way along the bottom of the interior, up the back, P-clipping and mounting it securely on the way, and then we can have this in here. And then in the next video, yes, it's going to be the next video, when we put the modem controller in with it, it's going to be a nice route so I can mount the antenna for the modem up on this window here, and I can sight the box just up in this top corner as well. So I think all we need to do now is get on it. First thing we're going to do, Ross, I think, is run the cables. What do you reckon? Yeah. Let's do that. Access here is not good. I can't feed the cables through the way I want to. So what I've done is I've got a pull through. Ross and I have just fed this cable through from underneath the seat, or near. And what I'm going to have to do now, I've already stripped off the sheathing. What I'm going to have to do now is connect the cables together in a manner that they're strong enough that I can pull them both through. The gap is very tight, but if we can pull this off, it'll be very cool. All I need to do is get them through a little bit. So hopefully, if I do this right, I might just put a little bit more on there. If we do this right, we should have the cables fed exactly where I want them. And we should have no problems. But yeah, I guess it's just making the connection between the two wires you want to pull through very strong. What we have to do now is feed the cables through the bridge, let's call it, from the interior to the bed. Once they're fed through, we can route them nicely to our 12-gang fuse panel, just in the back here. And I'm going to terminate the live as close to the live feed from the Clayton that I can, and then the earth in a similar manner, earth, ground, whichever you want to call it. Terminate them nicely. Once they're cut to length, put the heat shrink round them, cable tie them all up into place, and then turn it on. Put the fuse in and then turn it on. As a side note, the LPS2 3000, rad piece of kit. We've just used it for our 2.5 week trip around Europe. Didn't falter. We got 240 in, 240 out via the inverter, so it's an inverter charger, 160 amp hour lithium battery, solar input and DC input and output as well. Fantastic piece of kit. And when it's connected to the likes of the 12-gang fuse panel, I've got lots of scope for future additions. And today we're putting in that diesel heater wiring. And there we have it. We have the Autoterm heater, full installation, right?
Start to finish, done.
So that was belly pans off, fuel tank,
Yep.
fuel lines run, fuel pump mounted, diesel heater mounted,
Wiring run. Wiring connected.
yeah,
Controller
that was
connected.
through the interior,
And box made.
located, and then box made. And the box has been made, so all it's doing is, well, again, we had some design constraints, didn't we?
Yes.
Because we needed not only to make sure under the seat was not disturbed, so we didn't have it coming up through the seat base, which is what most people do.
Yep.
So we wanted it coming out through the floor, and as such, we had to make a box to be able to cover that. It's designed so we can still fit stuff up top, like the UAO table, which we love, and it's very handy to have straight away as soon as you open the sliding door. The heater controller's in the right location, and we've got the carbon monoxide detector too. So
Ready to go.
very happy with that. Do you want to just hit the controls and then we can see the heater kicking in? Because it's a hot today, we actually have to ramp it up to what, 30 degrees?
To get it to actually kick in. Right.
Because it's actually 24 right now. Now I can feel that that's fired up. It will go through its cycle, and what we want to do as well is show you, and I'll get my mic down there, of how noisy it actually is, because there's a lot of people that say, oh, it's really noisy, you can hear the pump.
Or how noisy it isn't.
Or how noisy it isn't.
Yeah.
The pump is underneath, the heater is underneath. I can hear it starting up right now. Here we go, let's do this. Can I manage this? Do excuse. So that means the pump is running. I
Yeah.
can't even hear it clicking. I heard it click the first 3 times. So that's with the mic right down there, which means it will be louder.
Not that you lay down and listen.
Not that I lay down with my head next to the heater outlet, no. Wrong way. Never get these right. There we go. That is now pumping out hot air. It's set to 30, which is effectively full whack, isn't it?
Yes. Yes,
That's
as
max
high as it
power.
goes. Yep.
There we go. So if you can hear that in the background, even if you can hear it, that's a slight sacrifice to be made to keep warm in a van. So there we go. All done and dusted. The link to this kit and other diesel heaters is down in the description. If you would like to have your diesel heater fitted by us, please get in touch via email. And that's about it for today, I think, isn't it?
Time to go.
Time to go. We're off to Wales right now to Dub Farm, so you can tell at what date this video is actually filmed. Thanks again for joining us. If you like this video, please give it a like. If you want to see more content like this, or the rest of the build on this van in particular, please make sure to subscribe. And if you want to see videos up and coming regarding this van and other projects that we have going on, please be sure to hit the bell, the notification bell. That's the one. Cool. Thanks so much. Thank you to Ross, and thank you to Autoterm for supplying the heaters. That's a wrap. See you next time.